Welcome to the Tech Space, and in this video what we're going to be going over is something called the while loop. So loops are something new in this tutorial that we haven't went over yet. So basically what a loop is in a program is something that's going to occur more than one time, and specifically it's going to occur a certain number of times. So basically, if you have a function that you want to run, say 40 times in a row, then you maybe would build a loop for that program to run in. So basically, I'll go ahead and show you what it is. So what we have here is something called the for loop, and well, we have two different types of loops. In this video, I'm actually just going to go over the for loop. It's simpler. The for loop basically is something that is used again to make your function or some set of rules run over and over again. So we write for, set of parameters, and then the braces that we need on basically every element in C++. So in for, what we're going to have is three things. So what we want is an integer. Let me write this out first. So we have integer x, so we're going to say for integer x is equal to 0, x is less than 10, x plus plus. Now what this means, okay, the first part of this, okay, well, first I'll start with this. So for is a loop. For is a type of loop. And that loop allows this argument to happen. So integer x is equal to 0. That's what we're saying. Now we want this loop to occur as long as x is less than 10. So since x is less than 0 and we want this to occur, then while x is less than 10, we have to have something that makes x change, or this is always going to just keep running because there's nothing to stop it from 0 ever being greater than 10. So that's where this last part comes in. And by the way, you want to separate these with semicolons. So after you declare your variable, and again, you could have used that first thing. We could have just declared like this, integer x is equal to 0, and then in here, just put integer x, or again, we can just declare it in here, and then get rid of this line of code. So we have integer x, semicolon, x is less than 10. So while x is less than 10, we're going to run this stuff in here. Now this last part, x plus plus, is the incrementer. This increments x by 1 every time the for loop is ran. So every time this runs, x will become the next number up. So x will be 1 after it runs once, x will be 2 after it runs twice, x will be 3 after it runs 3 times, and so on and so on. So eventually x will become greater than 10. So we'll make a little bit of sense. We're going to say this is a string of text. Something very simple, because it really doesn't matter. I just want to show you the concept of this, and everything in here will come after. So basically, if I go ahead, if we go ahead and run this, you'll see we get, this is a string of text 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times. That's because once we ran this, we said, okay, we want this to run while x is less than 10, starts at 0, 0 to 10, that's 10 elements. So we ran this 10 times because it incremented by 1. Now, we could have easily just said, I want it to run 1,000 times. Close this out, rerun it again, and it's going to run 1,000 times. It ran until it hit 1,000, and then it stopped. That's because, again, it was incrementing by 1 every time. Now, we can also do something else. So we can say, you know, while x is less than 1,000, we'll do, actually, I'll do 20, but instead of x, okay, so x plus plus basically is a shortcut for x plus equals 1, which means x, the value of x, which is 0 at the moment, plus x plus 1. So basically this means in arithmetic, or how we write this in algebra, would be something, we'd write this: x is equal to whatever the value of x is plus 1, end of the story. So technically I could just write this down here in our for loop, forget about it in the argument, and just write it here. X is equal to x plus 1, and it'll increment by itself because it's running this code in the loop. It knows x is equal to 0, and since this loop is going to run 20 times, it's going to have to stop at 20 because it started at 0. So there you go, 20 times. So we can also start, you know, at 10. Started at 10, I want it to increment by 1. I'm going to get 10 text. I'm going to get this printed out 10 times because the incrementer is still here. And again, that is called the incrementer. So x plus plus just means x is equal to x plus 1, or in coding programming language, we say x plus equals 1, which is again the same as saying x is equal to x plus 1 and then x plus plus. So these three statements are the same thing. Now that I've said that, we don't need to increment by 1. We can increment by whatever number we want. So I can say x is equal to x plus 10. So if you think about it, we're starting out at x is equal to 10, and we want it to be less than 20. It's never really going to hit 20 because it's less than 20. So we have to say less than or equal to 20 to include 20 in that set. So if we have less than, it's going to stop at 19. So when we add 10 to 10, we're going to get 20, and it's going to be a false statement, and it's not going to run. So once we add this, we're going to get this out once, because when we add 10 one time, it's already equal to 20. So when we add it twice, it's going to be equal to 30, which makes this false, which makes this statement terminate. So now, hopefully you get it. Once the statement is no longer true, it can't run again. So if I have my incrementer as anything that becomes true or becomes false, then it will always stop the program. And that's important, because if you don't have something to increment, basically what we're saying is this: I never want you to ever stop printing out that text, and it's never going to stop. As you can see it popping up down there, it's running it. It's not going to ever stop because the loop is never going to end. The loop cannot end because there's nothing to stop x, or it's not stop x, but there's nothing to make x equal to anything else because there's no increment. So we can see this a little bit better if we just go and don't end the line in the program, rerun it, and as you can see, you get this bunch of, it's the same string over and over, it's just not ending the line. And you can see that it keeps going. But when we do x plus plus, we get a specific amount of times that string of text or them commands within that for loop will be ran. And that's basically what a for loop is, and what an incrementer is. So what to take from this is that, 1, this is where you're starting it. This is your starting point. This can be set to equal to anything. It does not have to be equal to 0. It can be equal to anything. What the middle piece of information is for is how many times do you want this for loop to run? How many times do you want the content in here to run? And that can be any amount of times as well. And to set that, we use the arithmetic operators that we learned before, which can be, less than or equal to, greater than or equal to, or just, plain old equal to. Remember to use 2 equals 2 signs. But when we're declaring a variable, we don't use 2 equal signs, but when we're using arithmetic, we have to use the actual arithmetic operators. So I hope that makes sense. Once you write a lot of code, you'll get used to it. Not even a lot. Once you do this a few times, you'll understand the gist of it. But basically, you want an incrementer so that this stops running. And anything in here can be anything. So it doesn't have to be a string of text. I can do what we did in the past and say, enter numbers and do all that crap. But the basis of this is that we're going to be able to run functions and do certain tasks a specific amount of times and use the least amount of code possible to make that happen. So that's basically what a loop is, and we'll be going over loops and functions and stuff like that, and it will all tie itself together. So when we put this all together, we'll be able to create programs such as stock generators, random number generators. You can create games, you can create anything using these types of techniques. And trust me, when people are creating software and games and anything, apps, anything that has to do with programming, they're using loops, they're using variables, they're using this set of recursion and incrementers so that their programs run how they need to be ran, which again will become more apparent as you learn more and more about C++ and what it does and how it works. So in the next tutorial, we're going to be going over while loops, and while loops are a little bit different from for loops, but now that you get the gist of how a for loop works, the while loop should be no problem to learn. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next tutorial.